Oh God. Okay. How's it going, everyone? Charlie here. We're all stuck in quarantine. It sucks, but we're out here to get some educations and continue on. So this is the general topic. I think I have said that I'll be doing serpent snakes and other things within religions, and so then yeah, let's just get this started. I will try to cover as much context as possible, but there's so many things about snakes and serpents and everything in within the world, and it's gonna be really hard for me to cover it all, right? Because this just goes beyond us in a way, right? Um, so yeah, let's just remember to wash your hands, and then let's just get this video going. Alright, so there's a picture of the snakes for you guys down there. Alright, so what is a snake? Alright, so snakes are long, limbless reptiles which have no eyelids and jaws that are able to hyperextend to be able to devour a lot of things bigger than their heads. Some of these snakes have a venomous bite. Alright, so there's some pictures of some snakes there. And what is a serpent? There's actually really no difference to a snake. These serpents could be classified as a larger type of snake if you put some thought into it a little bit. And I just put into the texture here that snakes and serpents are one of the most common and oldest creatures within many religions. A lot of Americans, or I mean, at least some of the American flags here, for unions and stuff, they contain the rattlesnake, just snakes in general. Don't tread on me, stuff like that. So here's some scary photos of some snakes. Every time I look at this, I want to not want to do this project, but I'm here for you guys. So let's just move on. As you guys can see, that they hyperextend, big fangs, kind of scary looking. Let's just yeah, okay. So what does it mean? So throughout religion, serpents have been represented as both good and evil, life and death, creation and destruction. So on the good note, most of the time they often stood for fertility. They are seen as a symbol of the male sex organ. Don't know why. Probably because they're long, and they're moving on. They're really mostly associated with water and earth because of the many different species of snakes in the world. Most of them could be in water. Most of them could be on the earth, in the earth, and such. And another thing that it associates with is rebirth and transformation, as well as immortality and healing, because snakes are able to shed their skins at different times, thus allowing them to show off their new shiny skin. It's like being reborn, and people would take this as in being able that snakes are able to live on forever. And what is the evil part of it? Is seen as evil or some type of demonic temptation and evil seduction throughout the Jewish Bible, um, and is often seen as dangerous and because they're poisonous. And the other, let's just put this in a third category. The other meaning I actually added on was they're kind of like guardians, or protectors in a way. Um, they are represented as guardians within temples and other sacred areas. There's if you go on Google, there'd be a lot of videos of these snakes just defending things. Like they'd just be chilling inside like a temple in India, and they're just there. No one knows why, but now we would have to guess that they're there to defend the temples. The reason why they're good guardians is because they're very defensive. They would rather intimidate and fight rather than run away, which makes them that's what a guardian is pretty much. So here are some photos that I have before we get into a little bit more. So on the left here we see the salvage scrap to blast the Jap. This was used during the World War II propaganda by the states to get to put more hate towards the Japanese. As you can see, the Japanese is down there, represented as a snake, seen as bad, evil. In the middle, the top middle here, the picture of Moses with the staff. We'll get into that later. On the bottom, we have the Ouroboros, whatever that is. It's a symbol that represents um, rebirth, immortality, and many other things. We'll get into that a little bit later. And on the right here, we actually have a medical sign that has in the middle there um, a stick with a snake wrapped around with it, and we'll get into that as well. So now all that boring stuff gone, we are actually going to get into the juicy parts, the good stuff. So within okay, we'll start off with the Jewish mythology. Sorry. So within the Hebrew Bible, the serpent or snake within the Garden of Eden lured Eve with the promise that she'll be like God, or also known as Yahweh. The snake was identified as Satan within the book of Revelations, and within the book of Genesis, the serpent is portrayed as a trickster. So yeah, we encountered what we would say that the original snake. Moses' staff was able to transform into a snake and back into a staff, which is kind of cool. And then after Moses also created a copper snake and put it upon a pole. This would be a type of shrine that if anyone was bit by a snake, all they had to do was look and behold the staff itself to be healed, which is kind of interesting, especially during this time, I think. So here it is, Staff of Moses, also really famous for, or he's Moses holds it or uses it in a way when they run away from the Egyptians. I think it was when he splits the sea, pretty much. Iconic scene. Everyone should know about this. Pretty cool. And then here on the left here we have the snake staff, where there's multiple different types of portraits and illustrations of this moment where he's able to transform his staff into a snake and back forwards. And then on the bottom right here we have the copper snake staff, which is a copper snake staff. I talked about this already. Alright, so moving on to the Chinese mythology. So this one's going to be really hard to cover. I chose from all the Asian myths, I chose to do mostly Chinese over the Indian one because the Indian or the Hindus, they have a lot of things, which we will get into some of them, but mostly I'll talk about the Chinese mythology. So starting off, there are many different folk tales, myths, and legends about snakes and serpents within Chinese religions and cultures. It is said that snakes could prolong life and considered it to be a symbol of good luck, good harvest, and the earth and the reproduction. Again, we see the symbolism of reproduction, fertility. I could see why it's a symbol of good luck because they are quite rare. Don't know about good harvest, the earth, once again, because they could be in the earth. Some deities were portrayed as some sort of snake-like being. For example, we have Nuwa, Fuji, Gongong, and Zhulong. So on the left here, we actually have Nuwa, which is like a mother goddess. She was credited with her husband for creating us humans and fixing the pillar of heaven. And her husband is actually her twin brother, Fuji. Kind of weird, not gonna lie. We'll just leave it like that. Moving on. In the middle portrait, we have Gong, a water god who is very destructive and is blamed for any and almost most or all catastrophes. Kind of feel for the guy. Just getting blamed for no reason. He's just trying to live life, you know. And then on the right here, we have Zhulong, or also known as a torch dragon. He's a giant red solar dragon god, and he's credited for creating day and night by opening and closing its eyes, and also creates seasonal winds by just breathing itself. So I thought that was pretty interesting. When it comes to the more mystical, mysterious parts of it, it's really just look at it. It's a snake, dragon, serpents, stuff like that, right? Another thing from Asian culture would be the snake wine. Snakes are not normally eaten when it's put into the wine, but rather that their essence from the snake is dissolved to be drank within liquor. It is said to help actually promote vitality and health, which again, there's not really much proof that it does, but of course it's just folklore, it's culture, it's something that continues through with tradition. And it is quite weird, I'm not gonna lie about that, just looking at those snakes in there, just would rather not. And then another part is the Chinese zodiac. So people born within these years, pause if you have to look at them. Some fun facts, just one of the 12 animals for the Chinese zodiac. So if you're born in 1965, 1977, 1989, 2001, or 2013, then you are considered a snake. Of course, there's also the months and date and the actual date that comes in, but that is technically the year of the snake. Alright, so moving on, we have the Greek mythology monsters. There are many monsters throughout Greek religion that are mostly said to be legendary, in which heroes and gods slay them to protect themselves, communities, and just humankind. This would include beings such as Typhon, which is a son of Gaia, Tartarus, a monster, serpentine giant known to be the greatest monster of all time. Um, then there's a Hydra, a serpentine water monster, which is also an offspring of Typhon and oh god, Echidna. We'll talk about Echidna a little bit later, or actually we won't be talking about it, but we'll see it a little bit later. And this Hydra is also the ones that everyone would be known from maybe the Disney movie Hercules, where one head gets cut off, two more sprouts out, multiple heads and stuff like that. Another snake-like beings would be the Gorgons. These are three sisters with like instead of hair, they have venomous snakes as their hair, and whenever they are viewed by others, they it turns them into stone, and this would kind of reminds me of the basilisk in a way, and we'll get into the basilisk a little bit later. And two of the three sisters were actually immortal, but of course Medusa was not and was slain by Perseus. Let's just we're gonna go through a little bit faster. There's the Chimera, another offspring by Typhon and Echidna, lion body, head of a goat on its back, and a tail with a snake at the end. Cerberus, a three-headed dog, guardians of the underworld, also known in the Hercules Disney movie. Also a offspring of Typhon and I don't know. I don't even want to say that name anymore. Moving on. So here we have photos. Typhon on the left. This is one of many actually forms. It is quite hard to see or understand what he actually looks like. Or so that's one photo I found pretty kind of scary. There we have the Hydra in the middle here, both the top and the bottom through the middle. The top one is just a regular photo of some sort of Hydra, and on the bottom is the Hercules movie, which Hercules actually just cuts right off the head, then finding out that it sprouts into two. And on the right we have Medusa, or sorry, the Gorgons with the hair as snakes in a nice animated photo. We have the Chimera, Cerberus, and then here we have Echidna. She was known to be a big monster as well. Body of a human on the top, upper half, lower half as a snake-like, demonic type of being. Probably has different forms as well, but this is one of the many sculptures that were around during that time, or is now here present. Moving on. All right, so we're gonna keep continuing on with Greek mythology here, and there's actually someone we talked about. Oh, sorry, we talked about this earlier, but this is a pretty important part. This is Asclepius, god of medicine, healing, rejuvenation, and physicians. He is the son of Apollo and the mortal Coronis. Story goes is that he learned secrets of keeping death at bay after observing one serpent bring another alive with herbs. This is the story, of course. Zeus actually had him killed because he did not want the entire humanity race to become immortal. So this man here, he was obvious up to something. And here in the bottom right, we have the picture of him himself carrying a staff, which has a snake wrapped around it, kind of like the staff of Moses in a way of the photos that we had earlier. Another one on the bottom right here, the logo. This is quite used a lot with doctors and medical treatments and stuff like that. And this is actually a caduceus, whatever. And this is actually originated from Hermes, which is the messengers of gods, protector of travelers and thieves. Hermes would carry the staff when traveling, and in the past, doctors had to travel quite a distance by foot in order to help their patients, and these doctors would probably pray or worship Hermes because they believed he would protect them, because of course he's the protector of travelers. So that's a pretty interesting fact, that those two symbols were used are used currently in modern day, I guess in modern day society, modern day medicine, stuff like that. All right, so we're moving on with the Egyptian mythology. So the reason why this would be why I chose this logo right here is because the Ouroboros is a symbol that depicts a serpent slash snake slash dragon eating its own tail. This is seen within many different cultures and religions, and it is said to originate from Egyptian iconography, iconography, and was later adopted slash entered Western religions, most notable for being used with a lot of alchemy. Is often interpreted as a symbol for the circle of eternity, renewal, life, death, and rebirth. And as you can see, the little baby in the middle there eating its own tail. I only think that snakes do that when they are stressed out. But with the other icons moving around there, yeah, it's kind of like a way of rebirth in a way. This again, we would be talking about the shedding of the skin, which would symbolize the transformation or some type of rebirth. And the snake biting its own tail is actually a fertility symbol. The tail of the snake is a phallic symbol. The mouth is a womb-like symbol. And we're moving on to Norse mythology. I only chose the big Jormungandir, also known as the Midgard serpent or the world serpent. It is the sea serpent, middle child of the giantess Angrboda and Loki. Story goes is that Odin took this gigantic serpent and threw it into the ocean that surrounds Midgard, and the serpent itself grew so big that it was able to surround Earth and grasp its own tail, as in bite its own tail. And the legend says that if if he or whatever the monster is releases its own tail, Ragnarok will begin. And Ragnarok is also known to be kind of like a judgment day where everything goes just hellish on Earth. Everything will go down the drain, stuff like that. And here we have different types of photos here. On the left here we have the Uroboros again, but around it is inscribed with Norse runes. In the middle there we have actually a animated figure or animated picture of a game. It's called God of War, of course, from the Greek mythology, which then the main character enters Norse mythology, and you encounter the world serpent himself. And then on the right here we actually have an ancient portrait of the serpent. And moving on. And we have other snakes or other snake-like monsters. So the first one we're going to be talking about is the Tiamat, a sea serpent or dragon, goddess of the salt sea in Mesopotamian religion. So this would be before any of the Jewish or Christian faiths. Some would actually theorize that she is the original god to both Jewish and Christianity faiths, but of course this is really uncertain. Lots of blurry lines and stuff like that. So it's just said, just seen. There's not actually any truth behind it or any truth that we would know. And of course we go back to the part of the basilisk, a giant serpent that can cause death with a single glance. This basilisk. The reason why I added that on with the Medusa. Being able to turn someone with stones because of the Harry Potter. Hermione, if you guys have watched it, she looked through the mirror and the basilisk stared at her, but because it was through a mirror, not direct contact, it petrified her, turned her to stone, which was really interesting. Pretty good movie series. And again, at the bottom here I said, and many more that I cannot put into a presentation, because one, I'm already wasting most of your guys' time. Two, how many more can I cover, right? So there's still a little bit more that I have here left, but I'm just gonna say it one more time that I won't be able to cover every single thing that's serpent-like, snake-like within every religion itself. So moving on, we have Hindu and Buddhist mythology. So there are these things called nagas, and they are divine or semi-divine deities. They are seen to be half human and half serpent, which they can transform themselves as a full human. The Naga primarily represents rebirth, death, mortality due to its casting of its skin and being symbolically reborn. So of course we go back to the symbolism of rebirth and reborn pretty much. Brahmins associated Naga with Shiva and with Vishnu, who rested on a 100-headed Naga coiled around Shiva's neck. The snake represented freedom in Hindu mythology because they cannot be tamed. So that's pretty cool, yeah. I understand. Nagas also play a pretty important role within Cambodian, Izan, and Laotian mythology. It is said that the name Cambodia actually came from a Naga princess by a Kambuja lord. The descendants of their union are the Khmer people, and someone, George Codes, or whatever that name is, suggests that the Cambodian myth actually is based off of a legend of Phra Diang Nang Ai. And of course, we talk about the Buddha. A famous story goes in Cambodia that when Buddha was sitting in a position of meditation, he was actually supported by the coils of a multi-headed naga that also uses its flared hood to shield him from above. This would talk about Buddha's encounter with the king serpent, Mukhalinda. As the Buddha sat beneath a tree engrossed in meditation, the Serpent King came up from the roots of the tree to shield the Buddha from a tempest that was just beginning to arise. Of course, many different types of the same type of story, but there's just two mixed into one. So yeah, big shield, serpent, naga thing comes and protects Buddha from a tempest because he sees Buddha meditating with such peacefulness and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting. And so then we have some photos here. So the left one we have a naga wielding two swords. Bottom left is another form of a naga, and nagas are and the photo right next to the five-headed snake naga is actually a sculpture of a naga at the stairways, at the doorways of all Hindu and Buddhist temples, or most of them at least, because they're seen to be protectors. Like again, we said, like we talked about at the beginning, about how guardians and how they're so great at protecting everything. Here, the next photo after that, we see the Buddha illustrated underneath the coils, and the naga itself just big. And then there's the sculpture on the right, and I've added into the photo of these three beautiful women dancing because this is actually a Cambodian or a Khmer type of dance style, which is said that because the Khmer people were actually descendants of the Nagas, and maybe or maybe not, I kind of theorize that they could be, or just because of the way that they dance, a lot more snake-like, a lot more limbless type of dancing, really smooth, really elegant, just like the snake itself. All right, so snakes, all that stuff done. We're finished with those stuff. We're gonna move on about dragons. So dragons most likely have originated from snakes and serpents. Dragons play an important role within many different cultures or religions, stemming from gods and goddesses to monsters that deities and heroes slay. So there's a big distinction between dragons in the east and in the west, and in the sense, in the west, they are mostly monsters. These monsters are slain, destroyed, and in the east, they are seen as great beings, something that just brings good luck to everyone around them. So on the bottom here, I have a video link to Crash Course. If you guys want to just look at it real quickly, pause this video, just hit in dragons and serpents and religion, and it's a crash course video. It's like 10 minutes long, but if you shorten up a little bit, it could be like 8 minutes. And everything you need to know about dragons and serpents within religion is just right there for you. It's really interesting. I really like it a lot. The video itself. So moving on. So we have dragons right here on the left. We have the Western dragons on the right. We have the Eastern dragons. First, of course, on the left here, we got like the dragons are big. They're ferocious. They're scary looking. They have wings and stuff like that. How to Train Your Dragon. And on the right, we have dragons. They're more serpent-like or snake-like. They have 4 legs. They just fly without wings, which is really interesting because they're supposed to be magical. They're supposed to be mythical. And then we have Mushu from Mulan saying "Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow." Pretty funny. Hehe. And I just added on, what the heck is a wyvern or wyvern, whatever. Wyverns are just like dragons, but are a little different in a way. They are bipedal creatures, meaning they use 2 feet to help them move around, as dragons use 4 feet, or the regular dragons would use 4 feet. Their tails are often ended in a diamond or an arrow shape. It is rare for them to breathe out fire, but the 4-legged dragons mostly breathe out fire. Believed to be generally smaller than dragons, and these types of wyverns, they are more likely to enjoy being in the air. They're more fond of being airborne compared to their counterparts or their cousins or whatever they are. Um, and some documents even consider wyverns to be much more dumb and not dangerous at all, which is, I'm pretty sure if we saw anything that's pretty big up in the air eating stuff, I'd probably shit my pants. I'm not gonna lie to you. So we have some photos. So on the left here we got a type of frost wyvern, some mythology stuff, different types of wyverns, and then we also have the coat of arms. Bomb rate, gold dragon with the red flag. That's the flag or the icon of Wessex during the, I think, 900s. The creation or the unification of England itself. A lot of these um, English coat of arms contain the wyvern itself. Just interesting. Maybe they've seen it, maybe they haven't. It is just something that we just don't know. And what now? So we are near the end of or we're pretty much at the end. So as we can see, snakes and serpents not just influence cultures and religions, but it helps us and allows us to wonder if these great beings were actually real. Like the story of the Nagas with the Khmer people, dragons within England/Europe. We see that serpents and snakes symbolize both good and bad, but most of the cultures and religions see them as good things that help and show signs of fertility. And just again, um, like how would these people have come up with all this stuff? Is this really creative imagination, or did these things roam the land? All right, and that concludes this beautiful number one highest marked presentation out there. I do apologize if nothing is clear. I also do apologize for if it's not interesting, if you are bored. I actually myself found this really interesting. The thoughts of snakes, serpents, hydras, nagas, dragons, they all just, it seems so fake, so fantasy like. And I think because of the modern culture, modern era, that's why we as people view them as fantasy beings, I guess you could kind of say. Sorry about that. Yeah, but behind them they have a lot of history, a lot of culture, a lot of religion, a lot of myths, a lot of folklore behind them, and it's just really interesting to see, really interesting to learn. Of course, if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to find me, message me, and I will actually go out of my way and answer them because we are all quarantined and we have nothing else to do. Um, yes, so one, I will be taking in a lot of questions if you guys have any questions, but please do ask. And that's pretty much it for this presentation. So thank you guys for watching. Remember to wash your hands, stay inside, and don't meet with anyone else. So yeah, cheers, guys.